You've sat there before, staring at a blank page, waiting for something brilliant to arrive, and nothing comes. So you tell yourself the same quiet lie, I'm just not a creative person. But what if that's not the truth? What if creativity isn't a gift some people are born with, but a process your brain is already capable of, one you just haven't been shown how to trigger? Here's what most people experience. You need a new idea for a project, a problem, a piece of work. You sit down, you focus hard, you try to think creatively, and the harder you try, the more your mind goes blank. You start to compare yourself to people who seem to always have ideas, who sketch, who write, who improvise effortlessly. And somewhere in that comparison, you decide something about yourself. That part of the brain just isn't mine. Psychologists have a name for what's happening here. It's called functional fixedness, a cognitive bias where the brain locks on to the most familiar use of something and struggles to see alternatives. The harder you consciously strain for novelty, the more your prefrontal cortex narrows its search field. You're not uncreative, you're just using the wrong part of your brain at the wrong time. Here's what the research actually shows. A landmark study from neuroscientist Rex Young found that highly creative people don't have more brain power. They have less frontal lobe suppression. Their brains are slightly more relaxed in the regions that usually filter and judge. Creative thinking isn't a talent, it's a state, a mode your brain can enter when the conditions are right. You are not broken, you are just over-supervised by your own mind. Think of your brain as having two networks. The first is the task-positive network, your focused, logical, goal-oriented mind. It's the editor, the critic, the planner. The second is the default mode network, the part that activates when you stop trying, when you shower, walk, daydream. Neuroscientists once thought this network was idle. They were wrong. It turns out the default mode network is where your brain begins quietly connecting dots across everything you've ever seen, felt, or learned. It's not doing nothing, it's doing everything. Psychologist Graham Wallace mapped this in 1926, long before brain scanning existed, and identified a stage he called incubation. The moment you stop actively thinking about a problem is often the moment your brain starts solving it. Creativity, at its core, is pattern collision. Two ideas from different parts of your experience bumping into each other in an unexpected way. The more varied your inputs, the more collisions are possible. The more relaxed your inner critic, the more collisions you'll actually notice. So, how do you build the conditions for this to happen? Here are 5 principles, each grounded in how your brain actually works. Principle 1. Fill before you create. Psychologist Sarnoff Mednick developed the Remote Associates Test, a measure of creative thinking based on how many distant concepts a person can connect. His finding: people who consume widely and curiously score higher, not because they're smarter, but because they have more material to associate. Read things outside your field. Watch documentaries that don't interest you. Have conversations with people whose lives look nothing like yours. You cannot remix what you've never encountered. Principle 2. Embrace the diffuse state. When you hit a wall, don't push harder. Walk away deliberately. Take a shower. Go for a slow walk. Do something repetitive with your hands. This isn't procrastination. This is activating your default mode network on purpose. Neuroscientists at UC Santa Barbara found that mind-wandering during an undemanding task significantly increased creative problem-solving performance compared to continued focused effort. The pause is part of the process. Principle 3. Constraints are fuel. Paradoxically, total freedom kills creativity. When everything is possible, the brain doesn't know where to start. Dr. Patricia Stokes studied Picasso's creative evolution and found that his greatest leaps happened when he imposed strict constraints on his own work. Limit the tools you can use. Give yourself a timer. Narrow the problem down to one specific question. Constraints force the brain to find paths it would never have explored otherwise. Principle 4. Capture, don't judge. The biggest killer of creative ideas isn't a lack of ideas. It's the internal editor arriving too soon. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who spent decades studying creative people, found that the most productive creative sessions involve a complete separation between generation and evaluation. First, you make the mess, then you clean it up. Keep a running document, a voice memo, a scrappy notebook, where no idea is too stupid to record. Let quantity come before quality. Your best idea will almost always be hiding behind 10 mediocre ones. Principle 5. Cross-pollinate deliberately. The most original thinkers throughout history weren't specialists working in isolation. Leonardo da Vinci studied anatomy to paint better. Steve Jobs took a calligraphy class that later shaped the Max typefaces. Darwin's theory emerged from a voyage that was never meant to be scientific. Cognitive scientists call this analogical reasoning, the ability to take a structure from one domain and apply it to another. Every week, deliberately consume something completely outside your area of work, not for utility, just for collision potential. Here's the simple mental model that ties all of this together. Think of your creative mind as a quiet garden. Most people treat it like a construction site, forcing, drilling, demanding results under pressure. But a garden doesn't grow faster when you stand over it and shout. It grows when you prepare the soil by feeding it widely. It grows when you water it, then step back and let it rest. It grows when you give it structure, boundaries, and form. It grows when you stop pulling at every seedling and let them develop. And it grows when you let different plants grow near each other, because the most interesting things often bloom in the spaces between. Creativity is not a lightning bolt that strikes the chosen few. It is a slow, natural process, available to every mind that learns to stop forcing it. You were never uncreative. You were just taught to perform creativity instead of practice it. You were told to sit down and produce brilliance on demand, as if the brain were a machine that outputs ideas when you press the right button. But the brain is not a machine. It is an ecosystem. And ecosystems don't respond to force. They respond to conditions. So the next time you sit with a blank page and feel nothing, don't panic, don't judge, don't decide something is wrong with you. Instead, ask a quieter question. What have I been putting in? When did I last let my mind wander without guilt? What constraint could I place to help my brain find a new path? The ideas are already forming somewhere in the background. They always are. You just have to create the conditions for them to arrive.